Imagine for a second that you are just stepping outside on a normal Tuesday afternoon.
Right.
You look up, expecting to see the sun, maybe some scattered clouds, but instead the sky is just gone.
Completely blocked out.
Exactly. It's completely blotted out by a fleet of 10,000 alien warships. We're talking these massive, jagged, terrifying silhouettes casting an absolute planetary shadow.
Yeah, that's a terrifying image.
It really is. And this is the arrival of the Zorath Empire. In the universe of today's deep dive, the Zorath are basically an unstoppable galactic force. They spent 20 straight years burning star systems, erasing entire civilizations, and they don't really do negotiations.
No, that all.
They just broadcast a single chilling demand across all frequencies: surrender your entire species or be annihilated. So you're humanity, right? You're the absolute last independent power left. How do you respond?
You'd think a massive fleet.
Right. But no, you don't launch a massive counter-armada. You don't send an army of heavily armed mechs. You send one single guy, a guy with a rifle. And a sealed metal briefcase.
It's just the ultimate David and Goliath scenario. But what makes it so brilliant is that this isn't, some desperate last-ditch effort. It is heavily engineered, deeply calculated, and explicitly designed to be broadcast on a galactic scale.
Welcome to today's deep dive. We are unpacking a truly legendary piece of sci-fi narrative titled The Titan's Warning. Our mission today is to decode the mind-bending technology inside this story, the incredible tactical misdirection, and, well, the deeply profound message humanity sends.
And there's a lot to unpack there.
There really is. We're going to extract those insights on strategy, leverage, and determination so that you can actually apply them to your own life, whether you're facing down an impossible project, information overload, or, a massive competitor. Minus the alien armadas, of course.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. But seriously, reading through these sources, I was just in sheer awe. The audacity of humanity's response here is just off the charts.
Audacity is really the only word for it, because what we are looking at in these sources isn't just a fun story about a futuristic shootout.
Right.
It is a masterclass in psychological warfare. This story is fundamentally about how you dismantle an empire's sense of invincibility before you even fire a major conventional weapon.
Okay, let's unpack this. We need to set the stage for exactly how dire things are. The year is 2689. The Zorath Empire has spent 2 full decades just steamrolling the galaxy.
Right, billions upon billions are dead.
Exactly. Humanity is the absolute last independent power standing. The Supreme Overlord gives his standard surrender or die ultimatum. And Earth sends Captain Ethan Ward.
Just one guy.
Just one guy. Now, Ethan is a 3-war veteran, former Special Forces, but the sources make it explicitly clear he's not just a guy who is really good at basic training. He is the singular, isolated result of something called Project Titan.
Right, and the timeline here is the key to understanding humanity's strategy. Project Titan wasn't a panicked reaction to the Zorath showing up in orbit.
It wasn't.
No, it was a black site research initiative that humanity had been running in secret for 200 years.
Wow, 200 years.
Think about what that means. That is like 8 or 9 generations of the brightest minds working on a single foundational question about what if one single soldier could equal an entire planetary army.
And they literally threw the kitchen sink at answering that question. I mean, we're talking 2 centuries of unrestricted research into genetic engineering, nanotechnology, artificial intelligence, quantum combat systems, all of it.
All integrated into one person.
Yeah. Ethan Ward is referred to as a living strategic weapon. It's like he is essentially bringing a walking, breathing, artificially intelligent nuclear submarine to a knife fight.
That is a highly accurate way to visualize it, honestly. His biology and his technology aren't just wearing each other, you know? They are completely, seamlessly integrating.
Right.
He is a closed-loop system of offense and defense, but the physical and mental toll of that integration is immense, which is why he's the only one of his kind.
But hold on, wait. I have to push back on this strategy right out of the gate.
Yeah.
If humanity spent 200 years of intense, secret R&D on this project, spanning generations, and Ethan is the only successful result they've ever produced, isn't sending him in completely alone incredibly reckless?
Well, I don't...
Hey, look, if I spend 2 centuries building a single priceless Ferrari, I don't drive it into a demolition derby just to make a point. What if he just trips? What if he catches a lucky stray energy beam from some nervous alien recruit? You lose 2 centuries of work in a fraction of a second.
What's fascinating here is that I see why it looks reckless on paper, but you have to look at the psychology of the Zorath Empire. The risk was exactly the point.
How so?
The Zorath are conquerors. For 20 years, they have thrived on the grand spectacle of crushing their enemies' massive fleets. They want the big space battle. They want the dramatic victory.
I see.
Sending one single man wasn't arrogance, it was a calculated, devastating insult. It completely strips the Zorath of the glory of a grand battle.
So it's basically a slap in the face.
Exactly. When Ethan lands his tiny shuttle inside their flagship alone, the alien commanders literally ask if it's a joke.
Right, they can't even process it.
No. The Overlord smiles on the broadcast because he assumes humanity has just thrown in the towel and surrendered.
But the reality is, humanity is just refusing to play the game by the Zorath's rules.
Precisely. By depriving the Zorath of a conventional war, humanity denied them their usual script. The Overlord doesn't know how to process a single human holding a briefcase. It doesn't compute with his conquering worldview. So rather than engage in diplomacy, he just defaults to ordering an immediate standard execution.
And this is where the psychological warfare shifts from high-level theory to incredibly violent reality. Let's talk about where this is happening.
Right.
The Zorath flagship.
Right.
The sources say this thing is 50 kilometers long, 50 kilometers. That is not a ship. It is practically a floating continent packed with millions of heavily armed alien soldiers.
It's a massive scale.
Yeah, so you drop this one irreplaceable human into the absolute heart of the hornet's nest.
Yeah.
Ethan steps out of his ship. The Overlord projects his voice and says, "You stand before the mightiest empire in existence." And Ethan just shrugs and says, "I've seen bigger."
Which is just a great line.
Which, side note, is probably the coolest thing anyone has ever said right before an entire army opens fire on them.
It immediately establishes dominance, right? He is entirely unimpressed by the thing that has terrified the rest of the galaxy for 2 decades. And then the Overlord gives the order, and thousands of weapons fire at him all at once.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the impossible happens. The sources describe the bullets just freezing in midair.
Yeah.
Every projectile stops dead. Every energy beam just vanishes. Ethan is surrounded by these nanite shields. I need you to break this down for me, because how does that even work conceptually? It's not like he's hiding behind a thick piece of metal.
No, it's highly dynamic. Nanotechnology on this level means his armor is composed of trillions of microscopic machines that can rapidly reconfigure themselves at a molecular level.
Okay.
So when a kinetic projectile like a bullet approaches, the nanites instantly swarm and form a localized, hyperdense physical barrier exactly at the point of impact.
Just right where the bullet hits.
Exactly. Just a tiny, impenetrable wall that exists for a millisecond and then dissipates just as fast so he can maintain mobility.
And what about the energy weapons?
For energy beams, it's a matter of refraction and absorption. The nanites alter their surface properties to perfectly reflect the specific wavelength of the incoming beam, or they absorb the thermal energy and actually convert it into power for Ethan's own suit.
That is insane.
It is, but the real magic isn't the nanites themselves, it's the artificial intelligence managing them.
Right, the AI is doing the heavy lifting here. The text says it predicts enemy movements before they happen, which, I mean, that sounds like sci-fi magic.
It sounds like magic, but it's actually probability math based on biology. Think about your autonomic nervous system.
Okay.
Before you consciously decide to pull a trigger, your body betrays your intention. Your pupils dilate. Your micro-expressions shift. There are subtle changes in your muscle tension and your center of gravity.
So the AI is reading their body language.
Yes, but at quantum speeds. The AI is analyzing the micro-expressions on the faces of thousands of alien soldiers simultaneously.
Thousands of them.
Yeah, it's reading the subtle shifts in their muscle tension, calculating their biological reaction times, and mapping the trajectory of their weapons based on the angle of their wrists.
Wow.
So before an alien even consciously decides to fire, Ethan's suit has already mapped the trajectory, deployed the localized shield, and provided Ethan with the optimal firing solution to eliminate that specific threat.
It's like playing a high-stakes game of poker against someone who can literally see your heartbeat and read your mind. You've lost before you even pick up your cards. So Ethan systematically starts wiping out entire platoons. The ship's security systems fail. The combat drones fail. Every trap collapses. It's like watching a single, hyper-aggressive white blood cell systematically dismantle a 50-kilometer-long virus.
That's a great analogy.
But here's where I need to stop you, because I have a major issue with the timeline. It takes him 3 days.
Right.
3 full days of non-stop siege to reach the Overlord's throne room. If his quantum combat systems and his AI are really that flawless, why didn't he just speedrun the ship in an hour? Was he just lost in a 50-kilometer maze? Or was he intentionally dragging it out for the cameras?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, he was absolutely dragging it out. The duration of the siege was the most deliberate part of the strategy.
Okay, why?
Remember, this isn't a covert ops mission in the dark. The broadcast is live. Billions of enslaved aliens across the galaxy are watching this feed. When Ethan first landed, the galaxy laughed. They thought humanity was pathetic. But hour after hour, day after day, they watched the pride of the Zorath fleet, an army of millions, fail to kill one single man.
So the laughter turns into sheer terror for the Zorath and hope for everyone else.
Exactly. Think about how this applies to leverage in the real world. If you want to take down a massive, intimidating competitor, sometimes you don't fight their product. You fight their aura of invincibility.
Oh, that's smart.
Empires built on conquest rely entirely on the illusion that they cannot be beaten. If the subjugated populations believe the empire is invincible, they won't rebel. By dragging this out for 3 agonizing days, Ethan wasn't just killing soldiers, he was publicly bleeding the Empire's reputation dry.
Showing everyone they can bleed.
Yes, showing every enslaved world that the Zorath can be embarrassed.
A broadcasted dismantling. That is brutal. It's like dragging out a PR crisis for a massive corporation until their stock completely tanks, rather than just settling out of court on day one.
Perfect comparison.
But all of this combat, the 3-day siege, the thousands of destroyed drones, it was actually all just a noisy, violent distraction for the most important item on the ship. The sealed case Ethan was carrying.
Oh, yeah. The intelligence divisions of the Zorath were driving themselves crazy over this briefcase.
I bet.
They are watching him slaughter armies, but his primary physical focus, his defensive posture, is always centered on protecting this box. They logically assumed it had to be a weapon of mass destruction.
Like a planet-cracking bomb or something.
Right, or a bespoke biological virus meant to wipe out their species.
So Ethan finally reaches the throne room. Millions are still watching live across the galaxy. The Overlord is surrounded by his elite guards, the absolute strongest, most heavily augmented warriors in the entire empire.
The best of the best.
Yeah, and they charge Ethan. And the sources note it takes exactly 30 seconds for him to obliterate them. It's not even a fight, it's just a cleanup. And at this exact moment, the Overlord finally realizes that Ethan isn't there to fight a war. Ethan is the message.
The Overlord, completely out of options and terrified, demands to know what Ethan is. And Ethan finally opens the case, and out comes a metallic sphere, no bigger than a baseball.
The Overlord actually laughs again.
Yeah.
He looks at it and says, "That's your ultimate weapon." And Ethan just smiles and says, "No."
Yeah.
The sphere activates, but it doesn't blow up the ship.
No
It
explosion.
doesn't release a virus. Instead, it hijacks every single screen on the 50-kilometer flagship. And not just the ship, it connects to every communication network across the entire Zorath Empire simultaneously.
All at once.
It's a transmitter. It's like a digital Trojan horse, or like a pirate signal overriding the Super Bowl broadcast, but for an entire galaxy.
This is the pivot point of the entire narrative. The violence stops and the ultimatum begins.
Earth's president appears on every screen in the galaxy. She delivers what has to be the most iconic line in this entire universe.
Yeah.
We sent one soldier because one was enough.
Just a phenomenal flex.
A total flex. She demands the Zorath leave all occupied worlds and release every conquered species immediately. The Overlord, predictably, refuses. I mean, he's not going to surrender his empire on live TV. And then we get the twist.
The real ultimate weapon.
Hidden jump gates suddenly activate all across the galaxy. Not hundreds of gates, not thousands.
Yeah.
Millions.
Millions of them.
Millions of human warships emerge from deep space. Entire sectors are just instantly filled with human vessels. It turns out humanity had secretly built the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history.
Just waiting in the wings.
Right. The Titan soldier was never the attack. He was just the warning. So what does this all mean? It's the ultimate galactic magic trick. Humanity used a literal superhero as a sleight-of-hand distraction while they moved millions of ships behind the curtain.
It is a brilliant logistical maneuver.
It is. But wait, I have a massive problem with this logic. I have to push back hard here.
Okay, let's hear it.
If humanity had a massive, unstoppable armada of millions of ships hidden away this whole time, why use the sleight of hand at all? Why risk Ethan?
Well, why spend 200 years building a super soldier just to drop him into a blender when you could just warp in and blow the Zorath out of the sky from day one? If you have the hammer, why are you playing around with a scalpel?
This raises an important question. I love that you brought this up because it gets into exopolitics and the justification of warfare.
Exopolitics, okay.
You have to break down the difference between how a conqueror is perceived versus how a liberator is perceived.
Okay, I'm tracking.
The source material specifically notes that humanity preferred exploration over conquest, peace over domination. If humanity had just ambushed the Zorath with millions of warships out of nowhere without warning, what would that look like to the rest of the galaxy?
It would look terrifying.
Exactly. Humanity would have looked like just another hyper-aggressive empire. They would have replaced one tyrant with another in the minds of the people they were trying to save.
Oh, wow.
The galaxy wouldn't feel liberated. They would just feel like they had new management.
Ah. So this entire 3-day charade, it was about the optics of the war. It is about establishing a mathematically airtight casus belli, a universally accepted justification for war. By giving the warning first, by offering a legitimate chance for peace, and by letting the overlord arrogantly refuse that peace on live galactic television, humanity justified the absolute annihilation that followed.
That makes perfect sense.
They ensured the rest of the galaxy saw them as reluctant liberators who were forced to act, rather than conquerors who struck first.
Wow. They needed the galaxy to see that the Zorath chose their own destruction. And destruction it was. The aftermath described in the sources is staggering. A war that the Zorath had been waging flawlessly for 20 years. Humanity ends it in just 6 months.
6 months.
The empire is completely dissolved, the slave populations are freed, the overlord is captured, and the legend of the Titan is born.
The structural efficiency of that victory is incredible. 20 years of unstoppable momentum ground to a halt in 6 months, because the foundational pillar of the empire, its fear-based authority, was shattered before the fleets even arrived.
The sources explicitly highlight an HFY moral here. Now, for anyone unfamiliar, there's this whole subgenre of sci-fi called HSY, which literally stands for humanity, expletive,
Right.
It's all about humans being the crazy, resilient, unpredictable underdogs of the galaxy. And this story is practically the holy grail of that genre. The stated moral of the story is humanity's greatest strength isn't numbers, it isn't technology, and it isn't massive fleets. It's the determination of a single human who refuses to quit.
Which is a very romantic, human-centric takeaway.
It is. And there's a real lesson there. Think about how you can apply this asymmetric thinking to your own life. When you are faced with overwhelming odds, sometimes the answer isn't to try and match your opponent pound for pound. It's to change the rules of engagement entirely.
Right, redefine the game.
Be the one person with the briefcase who refuses to play their game. But, and I really need you to help me reconcile this, doesn't that stated moral completely contradict the story? The text explicitly claims humanity's greatest strength isn't fleets. But they literally used a secret fleet of millions of ships to actually win the war. Ethan didn't free the planets. The millions of warships did. So isn't the real moral of the story speak softly and carry a massive, galaxy-ending armada?
That is a completely fair paradox to point out, and it's easy to look at the numbers and assume the fleet did all the work, but they don't actually contradict each other if you look at the sequence of the victory.
Okay, walk me through it.
Yes, the fleet did the physical cleanup, the massive armada liberated the planets and captured the overlords. But wars are won in the mind before they are won on the ground.
You're saying the war was over before the gates even opened.
Exactly. By the time those millions of ships arrived, the Zorath had already lost the psychological war to one man. Ethan broke the Empire's spirit. He made the Overlord look weak, foolish, and vulnerable in front of his entire subjugated population.
We'll expose them.
He showed the galaxy that the Zorath could bleed. If humanity had just warped in with their fleet on day one, without Ethan's mission, they would have faced a unified, zealous empire willing to fight to the last breath. The war wouldn't have taken 6 months, it would have taken decades, and billions more would have died.
I see.
Because of Ethan's relentless determination over those 3 days, the human fleet swept through an empire that was already fundamentally broken from the inside. The determination of one man was the catalyst that made the fleet's job possible.
That makes so much sense. He truly was the message. The fleet was just the janitorial crew coming in to sweep up the mess he made of their psychology. So, to wrap up this incredible journey of Captain Ethan Ward, we see the sheer brilliance of Earth's two-pronged strategy.
Yeah.
You have a highly visible, deeply personal micro-siege to break the enemy's mind, followed immediately by a macro invasion to break their military. It really is a testament to the power of calculated determination and refusing to play the game by the enemy's rules.
It absolutely forces you to rethink how you approach immovable obstacles. If brute force isn't working, or if the enemy is simply bigger than you have to redefine the battlefield. You have to find the one point of leverage in this case, the Overlord's ego, and the Empire's broadcasted image, And apply all your pressure exactly there.
Exactly. Find your leverage. But I want to leave you with one final, kind of chilling idea to chew on as you go about the rest of your day.
Okay.
The sources tell us that humanity preferred peace, right? They just wanted to explore and be left alone.
Right.
But they spent 200 years secretly perfecting an unkillable, hyper-lethal Titan soldier. And they quietly built the largest armada of millions of warships in galactic history, just in case someone bothered them.
Yeah.
So Project Titan and the massive fleet were the weapons they used. What other terrifying doomsday projects was humanity secretly working on in the dark that they didn't need to use?
Now, that is a truly unsettling thought. The ultimate iceberg of military research. We only saw the tip of what they had prepared.
Makes you very glad we are on this side of the transmission, doesn't it? Thank you so much for joining us on today's deep dive into the cosmos. Keep asking those big questions, keep finding your leverage, and we'll catch you on